10 a.m. on a February morning, and I am Missy Lindsay here with SUSTA. Today, we're going to talk about evaluating a market with Victoria Mejia. Just a few housekeeping rules for everyone. This is being recorded. I would ask that everyone mute your camera, mute your microphones, but please know that we will open up the forum for Q&A at the end. Please make sure to keep the Q&A questions a little bit more general. If you have specific questions, either for myself regarding SUSTA and our programs, please feel free to send me an email afterwards. Or if you have specific country market questions or specific questions for Victoria, then you can email her as well. Her information will be listed at the end, but we are going to get started. I'm going to pass it over to Victoria, and let's see what we can learn about evaluating a market. Thank you, Victoria, for being here.
Thanks, Missy, and thank you for everyone for joining. Today, we will be talking about factors that you will want to consider when evaluating a market and how to find the data to evaluate it. So the idea for, just to give you a bit of a background, the idea for this webinar today really developed from popular questions submitted to the SUSTA Just Members Export Helpline, which is a complimentary service that's available exclusively to SUSTA member companies. And it provides you with customized answers to your export questions. So this helpline is designed not only for exporters, but also for companies that are new to export. And this is how you would access the submit a query to the helpline on the SUSTA website, the screenshot here. So again, today's webinar is going to focus on the factors that you will want to consider when evaluating a market and how to access the information, where you can look for that information. So factors that you want to consider include market size and growth, and that is domestic demand, consumer habits, distribution channels, as well as competition, both domestic and foreign competition and their market share. Also looking at what the comparable domestic and foreign products that are already selling in the market. Price is obviously a consideration, and what your price is versus the competition will shape your marketing strategy or even your decision to enter or not enter the market. Import regulations, which includes, this is a very important one, it includes everything from import procedures, registration, certificates, a big umbrella under import regulations, and other factors that may be everything from intellectual property, the political situation. You know, obviously these factors are not going to be foremost in every market, and they'll vary, but those are some additional ones that you'll want to look at. So the time, you know, when you're, the reasons for doing this is obviously that you've got, most companies have limited resources, both in terms of money as well as your time, and you want to narrow your market down to not waste your time and money. So one simple thing you can do, whether you're evaluating one market or trying to compare two markets, you can put these factors down and do a little bit of a spreadsheet to get a big picture idea, because you can lose yourself a little bit in the information sometimes. So here's a simple table that you could copy. So the first factor we talked about is, that we're going to talk about, is market size and growth. And that begins with looking at both the US export statistics to that market, as well as the foreign countries' import statistics. So all of the countries that are exporting to your target market, the size and growth of that market, the consumer habits and trends, the distribution channels, including the key retailers, key food service, if you're targeting food service. Often the reports will also contain best prospect foods to export. And when I mention the reports, the ones that I'm going to plug a lot today will be the USDA gain reports, because you can find, it's a one-stop shop where you can find a lot of this information. Two of these here, this is a sample report that I've, a sample table that I've pulled from the Retail Foods Report in Canada, gives you a snapshot of some of their recommended best product categories in terms of growth. So the reports from USDA GAIN will have a lot of these answers here in terms of market size. Here's another example, again, from the exporter guide, this time from China. And this is just page 1 of the report. Some of you may be familiar with these reports already, but some may not. Again, this is just a snapshot. The reports are longer, but you can see here they've got both competitors that are exporting to the China market, where the US stands in comparison to the other markets, and both the size and the growth rate of the Chinese economy, products with potential growth, and some of the top retailers. Another example here from Mexico, same thing. This is from the Mexico Exporter Guide. You have the ability to quickly get a snapshot of the market from who is, what the market share is here, what the top retailers are, and so on. And the reports provide a lot more information. So then the next factor we're looking at is competition. And we're wanting to know identify both the top countries that are competing with the United States, as well as what the domestic competition in the market looks like. Are there a lot of competitors? Is the market saturated? Can you compete on price, quality, or other differentiating points? Do the other competitor countries have free trade agreements? How is the competition viewed compared to US products? So these are all questions that you want to be asking yourself as you evaluate the market to determine if it is an attractive one for your product. And very important is what comparable products are being sold in the market. So as I mentioned before, the USDA GAIN reports, to try to arrive at this information, what the comparable products are being sold in the market. The USDA GAIN reports often mention the top retailers. So, the way you can get to identifying those products being sold in the market is delving into those reports and using the information on those retailers to research and identify competitors by looking either online at retailers' websites. A lot of the countries have, it won't work for every market, but many countries have online retail where you can look at pricing information and see what products are selling in the market. The other means is the traditional method, which is a lot more expensive, you going into the market and doing the research yourself or hiring somebody to do it that's in the market. Then again, through the GAIN reports, you can identify the best prospect foods to export and the key retailers. Here's another little snapshot of the top trading partners for China, again, from one of the GAIN reports. So price. Price is another big consideration when you're evaluating an export market, obviously, and you are wanting to find out how does your price compare to other similar products in the market. The answer to that question is going to impact your marketing strategy and your decision to possibly enter or not enter the market. To answer your question on how your product stacks up against other products, you need to do two things. One is you need to calculate your landed cost or your total export price, and then research the price of comparable products being sold in your target country. So you will be comparing your cost at that way versus the comparable products. So we've talked about and we'll show an example later on how to identify comparable products and brands and what they're being sold for in grocery stores. But right now we'll look at the first part of this question, which is calculating your landed cost so that you can figure out where you stack up against the competition. So the landed cost is going to be the total expense associated with getting your shipment to its destination. And that's going to include not only the original price of your product, but all the other costs associated with getting it there: insurance, freight, tariffs, taxes, and any other fees. So even if you're quoting Ex Works or free on board origin to your buyers, you're going to want to know what your landed cost is, even though you're not necessarily bearing those expenses, because they will add up to what the end consumer pays for at the grocery store or wherever you're selling it. And then it becomes very important to know what your landed cost is to help you with your marketing strategy and figure out, are you going to be targeting high-end retail, discounts, or whatever you're targeting, and what your pricing strategy is going to be. So to calculate your landed cost, this is a very simple example. We've got price of your product at $3 per unit, insurance for the total shipment at $200, freight at $1,200 for the total shipment, and tariff and taxes for this example at 5%. So what you do is you take the percentage of what 1 unit of the product, because we're talking about $3 per unit, represents of your total insurance and the total cost of your freight. So I calculated it at 0.1%. And then your tariff and taxes on that price per product. And you come with this total of $455 for your landed cost. Now, this doesn't take into consideration what additional fees, for example, what your, if you have a broker or other fees that will, at the end of the day, be passed on to to the customer. Even though you don't bear those costs, you will, you want to take those into account, because they will be passed on when you are comparing your pricing with those that are being sold on, at the grocery store. So just to back up a little bit, so we talked about here tariffs and taxes. Obviously the freight, that would be something you'd be getting from your freight forwarder, but tariff and taxes. And this is a question that comes up a bit through the helpline about how a company can go about calculating the tariffs and for their product. So where you find your tariff data, there are a few different resources you can use. The World Trade Organization has a free online resource that you can go to look at your duties and tariffs by country. It does display only the preferential duty and may not display additional tariffs, such as retaliatory tariffs that a country may be experiencing at a given time. But it is a free online resource that is a good starting point for many of these tariffs. And for those special retaliatory tariffs, or there are other sources you can go to. For example, U.S. website for the tariffs with China. So the United States Department of Commerce has an FTA tariff tool that is also a free resource. The limitation with this one is just that it displays only the preferential tariff rates negotiated under U.S. trade agreements. So in some instances, FTA partner countries may have reduced their most favored nation tariff below the FTA rate. And in those cases, then the U.S. exports would receive the MFN rate and not the preferential treatment into that market. So for that reason, the FTA tariff tool is not, it comes with caveats, I'll just say. The other way you can take it is you can pay fee-based services like FedEx World Tariff or Descartes Customs Info. But if you don't want to pay for those, another idea you can do is if some countries will have very detailed tariff information, for example, to Canada and the European Union, where you can click on, you can go through their websites to find your tariff for your product into those countries. And they're very, very good tools, also free and pretty easy to use. So those are some tools that are available for you to calculate tariff information so that you can arrive at your landed cost. So in order to calculate, in order to search for tariff data through any of these tools, you need to know what your harmonized code is. The harmonized code, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, or sometimes it's called HS code or HTC, but anyway, it's a 6-digit classification system that is used by customs authorities around the world to identify products for duties and taxes. And so all products will have it. You will have an HS code that is assigned for your product. And if you don't know it, this is just one example of say for sauces, 2103.20. And if you don't know your HS code, it's not a problem. It's pretty easy to look up. And one thing to keep in mind is that individual countries may have additional digits that they add beyond the 6 to further differentiate their product. So just to go back, when I talked about the tariff resources for Canada and the European Union, they definitely go beyond the 6-digit, but it is easy to navigate, fairly easy to navigate in terms of, once you have your 6-digit code, then you can just explore beyond that to see if there is further differentiation on your product for a tariff. For some there are and some there aren't. Then, as I said, if you don't know how to find your HS code, my favorite tool is this one. And it is run by the US Census. And they have a very easy, it's called the Schedule B search engine, that you can just enter your product name, your product, like say sauces, which is how I found this one. And then it will come up with suggestions, and you can further differentiate by ingredients. So this one is because I selected it was a tomato-based sauce. The Schedule B search engine provides more than the 6 digits. But again, just to remind you that the first 6 digits of the HS code are the HS codes that are agreed on by all countries. And beyond 6 digits, countries may have different numbers. So what you're really looking at is the first 6 digits, unless you are diving into a particular country market tariff. So going back to the price, we talked about how to calculate landed price. And the second part of the question was how to research price of comparable products being sold in your target country to find out if your price is competitive. So you've got your landed cost that gives you a baseline. And then here you will be looking at what is the price of products in the country that are comparable. So if you're looking at a new market and you're unfamiliar, you don't know where to go, again, if you go to the USDA gain report, they will list the top retailers. So if you are looking to sell to retail, you can look, here's an example of Mexico. USDA gain report, the exporter guide to Mexico, lists the top 10 retailers in Mexico. I selected one for the purposes of this example, Soriana, and we will be looking at condiments, sauces and vinegars sold by this leading Mexican retailer. So From there, I just went onto their website and pulled up different products that are in that category of sauces and condiments. Another example here is Canada. You know, a lot of countries will have online retails. Again, it won't work for every country, but if whatever you can do, whatever research you can do online saves you time and money in the long term. So it's a good idea to check it out. So here again, information from USDA GAIN report on the Canada market. Loblaws is one of the top Canadian retailers. We go to the Loblaws site, and this one I was looking at barbecue sauces, steak sauces. And from there, you can look at pricing. Here's a domestic, premium domestic barbecue sauce being sold at Loblaws. And this gives you an idea of what some, of course, they've got the cheaper ones. I started with the more expensive, but it gives you a good point of comparison for what kind of products are being sold in your target market. You can even delve deeper in some of these and look at nutritional content and ingredients to see how do I compare. You look at the packaging and so on, and it's a very handy and easy way to look at a lot of different products in different markets, all from your home or your office. So the next variable that you want to look at is the big umbrella of import regulations. This is a really important one, and it can be a bit intimidating because there's a lot of information. So my suggestion when you're looking at this and this first pass of just evaluating a market, what you're really looking at is for any information under these categories that is going to be very difficult for you, either because of time or money, or just not practical for your company's particular resource limitations. Most companies are being pulled in a lot of different directions. You know, you've got domestic sales, and so tackling an export market, you want to do it wisely. And so when you look at these different variables under import regulations, you've got, it will vary quite a bit by market. So this is just some ideas of what to look at, and I'll show you where you can look for these. It won't apply to every market, but obviously the import procedures for some countries, they're more rigorous than in others. Some countries may require product registrations before you can ship to the country, export to the country, or may require facility registrations for your manufacturing facility to be registered officially in the export market. Different types of certifications. Some certifications, or even some with these product registrations and facility registrations, may take a bit of time to submit the application and get it processed and approved by the local government agency. So some may not be so much a question of a lot of time in terms of what you to complete the application, but just waiting to get the approvals. And that's why looking at these ahead can help you with planning in terms of how you want to target a particular market, so that you're not, say, going to invest a lot of money in a show or traveling there, and then only then discover that you've got these things that you have to do before you can actually start exporting. Other things that may come up are maybe a regulation on a particular ingredient in your product. Again, this is not obviously not going to impact everybody, but these are the types of things that will be in import regulations. Other restrictions, there may be restrictions on your product, especially obviously the big ones that often get additional steps are things like meat, dairy, etc. And then differences in standards and labeling. So the labeling requirements, it's again, not something that you need to tackle right away when you're just doing evaluation and considering, but it is something you want to keep in the back of your mind as to what additional requirements one country may have over another. So when you're comparing countries, you can better assess which one may be a more attractive one in the short term. Nutritional claims and packaging, countries have different standards as to what you can claim, how your packaging can look like, etc. So those are the different things that can come under import regulations, and there are a lot. The nice thing is that we have two wonderful reports under USDA GAIN. They're the FAIRS report that contain a lot of this information. This one here is a snapshot of all of the certificates. It's a FAIRS certificate report, and it provides a snapshot of all of the certificates that you will need depending on your product for a particular market. This one, I can't actually remember which country I pulled this from, but it doesn't matter. It's just to give you an idea of what type. So this was for Japan, what type of certificates you would be required to produce. This is the FAIRS country report, just a table of contents to give you an idea, and it's not even the complete table of contents, to give you an idea of what types of items come up under the umbrella of the import regulations. This one is for Japan. Japan is a bit more rigorous than some other countries, so there is a lot of information. But again, you know, facility registration, product registration here, not all countries have it, but it is good to know as part of your assessment of an export market. So the other factors to consider are things like quotas. Some countries will have quotas, what the political risk, if any, there is in a particular market, intellectual property protections. Just to give you a quick example, China has a first to file policy for trademark registration. So you would want to protect your brand early by registering patents and trademarks with the China Trademark Office. What the legal environment is in the country, if you have chilled or frozen products, what the cold chain infrastructure would be in that market, etc. And where to find your data. So there are many sources. As I said, the one that I recommend to companies as a first stop is the USDA GAIN reports, because it's not only a one-stop shop, but it is it's very thorough. We've got the USDA has 94 offices in 76 countries around the world that collectively cover an additional 100 countries dedicated to putting this detailed information for our US companies. So through GAIN, through the USDA, we basically have all the countries, almost every country in the world covered. And it does take a big team of people. So the 3-4 reports that I mentioned in the presentation, we've got the FAIRS report. This is the most important report, Food and Ag, Import Regulations and Standards. And you can look at the whole country report, which is the one that I showed you for Japan, providing an overview of import regulations and standards for the country. There's also the export certificate report that lists all the major certificates required for that country. The exporter guide will give you a big overview of the market. Retail foods report, food service report, and individual product reports for you to delve deeper into the particular topics in the market. So this is the interface for accessing USDA GAIN. And I would like to take you, if we have a little bit of time, to look at it, but I think we are running out. So I will just show you the screenshots of how to do a search through this. And the ones I've highlighted here in the screenshot are the FAIRS reports that I've mentioned. So that is the how. And if you need help, have additional questions, please don't hesitate to to submit a question through the SUSTA Export Helpline, or if you have any questions now related to the presentation, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for that. It was a great presentation. And I know with the last few slides that you just had for the GAINS report, You couldn't really go all the way through them, but companies also, please know that you can honestly find some gain reports on the SUSTA site as well underneath our help resources line. So the same place that you would go for the helpline, you can also go and click on the latest gains reports. I think I added quite a few this past month or so. So there are a lot of new country markets up there to take a look at. And as Victoria mentioned, does anyone have any general questions for her before we conclude the webinar? I'm giving it a little minute or two. I don't see any coming up, but I will follow up with an email with everyone who's been on the call. And then I will also make sure to include Victoria's information. So if you wanted to ask her any personal information or any personal questions that you could. Someone just said great information and thank you for sharing. We appreciate that feedback. Thank you so much. I also want to tell companies, please, if you haven't yet registered for the second step, which would be identifying foreign buyers, please make sure to do that. We will be having that webinar next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central. So I'll also send another link to that just in case a few people on the call have not registered. But again, you can always find this webinar by logging into your MySUSTA account, and you will have access to Victoria with her email address with follow-up information. So all I'm seeing is great feedback. Thank you so much. Thank you so much from all the companies. So we appreciate your time. And thank you, Victoria.
Thank you for joining. And again, if you've got questions for exporting, please go on to the SUSTA website and submit an export query to get an answer. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Have a good one, everyone.